Hello, Oz. How are you doing?
Pretty well, Mike. How are you?
Really good, thank you. Really good. Just wondered if you could just start by just telling us a little bit about the kind of the origins of this story. Tell us about Longlegs and kind of how the seed of this idea kind of grew for you.
It came out of, sort of the genuine desire to make a picture that more people would see. And you start with that intention. You try to get out of your own sort of preciousness a little bit, and you sort of look around at things that have worked. And I just felt like Silence of the Lambs was a thing that was such a beloved, perfect little jewel of a thing. And there hadn't been a great one like that in a long time. And so, geez, what if I actually just pretended I was doing that for a while and kind of wrote a movie that felt like it was just going to be that. And then it was really not that at all. And I think that you can build yourself some sort of internal momentum that way, being like, oh, it's a trick. It's a little bit of a trick I'm going to do. It gives you places to go with it. It gives you places where you can kind of pivot off of things. And you've got your central kind of spine, you've got your central inspiration, your kind of guiding light. And then from there, that's when you're able to really get into what you want to do. So it sort of just came out of that. And then you just start sitting down in front of it every day and you wish for the best.
That's really interesting. So, do you mean that sort of in your previous movies, the Black Coat's Daughter and the other work that you've done, is it those movies hadn't quite reached a sort of mainstream enough audience compared to what you wanted at the time?
No, I don't even know that I was trying for a larger audience at the time. I think, the Black Coat's Daughter was the first thing that I'd ever done of any form of anything. Like I'd never made a music video or student film or a short or a commercial or anything like that. Like when I sat down to direct The Black Coat's Daughter, that was the first time I'd ever done that.
Mm.
And so you don't know anything. You really don't know. You're like a 5-year-old. You have no, or a 20-year-old. You have no fucking idea what you're doing. And so luckily in that picture, I knew a lot of what I thought it should be. And I was making movies I thought I would like. And like I had good collaborators and, a lot of it just, you get lucky.
Mm.
So I don't know that I had felt like I'd missed it previously, but it did feel like it was time to just sort of do something a little bit more accessible. Wouldn't it be fun to try to do something a little bit more accessible?
I love that because I think you're right on the face of it, right? You've got this setup, this kind of Silence of the Lambs-esque kind of serial killer procedural movie, but then actually what we get once it's kind of gone through the Oz Perkins filter, it feels like we actually get something a lot more complex than that. This is a film that feels like it's so much more about that dread, about that atmosphere, about something kind of more almost evil, right, lurking around the edges of this story. Was that kind of there for you on the page when you were writing it, or did that kind of come later when you were kind of creating the visuals and bringing the story to the screen?
I try to put as much onto the page as I can. It's a natural state for me to sort of write too much, I suppose you would say, or write more than maybe the typical screenplay allows.
Mm.
Screenplays, as you know, can sometimes be terribly prescriptive and sort of like interior.
Hmm.
Okay, now we know the trucks need to be prepared to be inside. Okay, it becomes very kind of antiseptic in a weird way. So I don't write scripts like I don't write slug line headings. I don't say interior, exterior. I don't say things like that. So just trying to get as much on the page about what the thing feels like, what characters are thinking. I write thoughts a lot. I don't know why everybody doesn't write that. It seems elemental that you would give that clue to all of the departments. Because if you've got a good production designer, they're thinking, what's the character thinking? I'll put that in the environment. So it starts with that, and then you just try to hire people who you think have good taste and who want to win and who want to do cool work for you and want their contribution to shine. And you get to that place in a movie where you realize everybody's trying for the same thing. Everybody's trying to make a cool thing that they can be proud of. And the one of the sort of primary sort of tasks of the film directors to let people do that.
This movie really has it's a truly kind of scary, sort of terrifying, oppressive atmosphere, and it's something that I found with so much of your work. I found this with the Black Coat's Daughter too. This kind of like really kind of dread-inducing atmosphere. What is the secret for you in kind of creating a really effective scare or a kind of scary environment for an audience? Do you think?
I don't know. To be like truly honest with you, I don't know. I just in setting about a scene or a look or a light color temperature or a costume on someone, you just you just try to trust your taste. Such an amorphous thing to even put into the universe to say something like that. But you got to make decisions and guesses, right? It's all guesses and decisions. And so, how atmosphere, you can't write it. You can't even really shoot it. You gotta find it. And you find it through the collaboration of all the people who do it. You find it in the editing room where everything really happens, where the only really like true experience of the movie is in the editing room. And so everything else is kind of walking around in the dark trying to find a light. In the editing room, you kind of, oh, it's that, oh, it's this. I see now. I thought it was something else, but it's this. And you just and for me also really important is to come at the stuff that you're doing with oblique references. Don't There was never like we said Silence of the Lambs, we established that. Okay, we know what that means and we can kind of go into automatic pilot with that. But then it was never like, well, have you seen this horror movie or this horror movie or this horror? Not interesting. We're going to end up with something generic and derivative and sort of obvious or something. So it became for me and my director of photography, it was more like, let's watch the movies of Gus Van Sant.
Mm.
Let's look at Uncle Boonmee who can recall his past lives. Let's look at other things that are like far out, man. Because if you go far out within the confines of the Silence of the Lambs, if you start talking about Gus Van Sant in Silence of the Lambs, you're like, what if Gus Van Sant made Silence of the Lambs? You start to get something that's sort of useful,
Mm.
that's kind of sort of you can kind of do something with it, but you can't get into like, what if James Wan made Silence of the Lambs? You just wouldn't say that. I wouldn't.
Yeah. I got a bit of I got some maybe it's just that atmosphere, but I got quite a lot of Lynch, like a kind of Lynchian dread. Was that ever kind of in your mind when you were creating this?
Yes, it's in my mind all the time. Like when you're trying to create stuff, you're absolutely trying to siphon off of the power of the great ones, right? You're not trying to siphon off the power of the lousy ones.
Mm.
People are like, I watch bad movies to learn. Don't watch bad movies to learn. Watch Eraserhead 10 times in a row if you want to learn something. Do you know what I mean? Like actually take the time to watch the new Twin Peaks, the one that was on Showtime. Like actually do
Mm.
that. There's better stuff in that than anything. So yeah, Lynch is one of the big baddies for me.
Yeah, agreed. And I think there's that kind of feeling of anticipation, and I got that in the cinematography too. I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about the look of this film because it feels like you play really interestingly with the aspect ratio and the use of kind of space too, kind of empty space, I suppose. Like, tell me a little bit about those kind of like visual decisions you made.
Well, we wanted to distinguish the time periods, and I think a lot of, just the opportunity to shoot on negative as opposed to shooting digitally was compelling to us. So we shot the 70s stuff on negative in the 4:3 aspect ratio, which is again just an exciting way of seeing things. And it's making its little comeback now, and you sort of see it in some things, and sort of Saltburn kind of does, like there's a lot of kind of great looking movies that employ that aspect ratio. But for Andres, the DP, and I, it was about, for me, observational is more an observational camera as opposed to a rushing camera is more it marinates the thing in a different way, right? And headroom for the actors is something that I take for granted. I can't imagine framing an actor like this in a frame. Like to me, this doesn't look like anything. Everybody does it. And you have to kind of, when you get a new DP, you kind of have to be like, actually, I think it's that. Because if it's this, there's a whole bunch of shit here. There isn't, but everything that's real is invisible, right? So everything that's invisible above their head is an actual thing. And it just makes a better feeling. We liked the look of VHS. because we did, because it's pretty to us. We like the look of brown VHS. So one day Andres came to me, he's like, I think the LUT for the camera should be VHS. It's like a VHS kind of look. And I said, that sounds great. Let's do it. Check. Done. Good. Do the next thing. Not let's talk about it for 10 hours and wonder about it. But that sounds good. Let's do that. And then using the observational camera that stays back, for me, just it puts the audience in a helpless place, right? You can't reach out and help the person. You can't stop the thing that's happening over there. It's too far away, right? It's over there. You're observing this terrible thing. You can't stop it. To me is much more calming in a weird way. It's more comfortable as an experience than in even in a horror movie than being really like up in shit. If you're up in stuff, there's like it just feels cramped to me. I don't like it. It's ugly, and I just try to do things that I think are nice, man. Do you know? Like I just make things I think look right.
I love that. It would make a really. I know I've started to realize there's almost like this kind of sub genre of horror where you've got Micah Monroe potentially being pursued by something in the frame with her, right? Like I always think of, It Follows, but then even Watcher, and it feels like Micah herself is becoming like a stamp of approval for these kind of beautiful, creepy, stylish horror movies that she's in. Tell me a little bit about the casting of her and working with her in this film.
She's got a very laconic presence on camera. On in real life, she's very active and talkative and sort of dynamic and kinetic. Um, but on camera, she's like a study in stillness, right? She's like a study in this like deep, sober, serious thing happening, and you can see it all happening. You don't know what it is, but it's all behind her eyes and behind her face, and she's not indicating a lot of things. She's not histrionically kind of like donating a bunch of verisimilitude and bullshit. It's very reserved, and you gotta go at her, and that creates the same kind of distance I'm talking about with the observing camera. Is that it creates a vessel, right, for shit to flow into it. Um, like Steve McQueen was always like, I don't want to say all this dialogue. I'll give the dialogue away, like in Bullet. He's like, other people can say the dialogue. I'll just listen. Because when the camera's on me and I'm listening, that's when I'm doing my best work. I'm not talking, I'm listening. And the audience will be like, what's he thinking? Um, it just engages things and makes things more dynamic. For me, she's a very dynamic actress in her minimalism.
And then, of course, offset against that, you've got the great Nick Cage. Tell me a little bit about kind of working with Nick. He also produced the film, right, as well. Tell me a little bit about that process of working with Nick.
Um, look, man, just every once in a while, good things happen, right? Every once in a while, a no becomes a yes, and all of a sudden everything's different. And you've got this part, and you think it's pretty good, you think the writing's pretty good, and you can kind of see what it is, and then Nicolas Cage gets it, and then your producer calls and says Nicolas Cage wants to do it, and then it's like it's really disorienting, right? Like it's an immediately insane thing to even be thinking about is happening. And then you get on the phone with him and you realize you like the same things. You have a lot in common. You feel the same way about stuff. You feel safe and confident around him. He wants to do just the words that are written. He doesn't want to make stuff up. He doesn't want to improvise. He doesn't want to riff. He just wants to do the text. So now you're puffed up, your confidence is good, you're feeling comfortable so you can relax. Nick creates a really beautiful, relaxing environment for me because he's a finely tuned uh, instrument, right? He's like a beautiful tiger or a Stradivarius violin or both. And he's just gonna do it. And he knows everything, reads everything, can access everything, knows every performance given by actors, has seen every movie, knows every line of dialogue, knows every quote from every song. Um, you don't get to be Nicolas Cage by being just all right, do you know? So it was as good as you would want it to be.
Was it okay? How did you find actually directing him? Like, did you have to give him notes? Was he okay with that? Like, how was that dynamic?
He's absolutely okay with it because he exists for the service of the movie, right? He's such a movie guy. He for him movies are the great gift of of living is our movies. So he wants the movie to be good.
Mm.
He's not about like will Nicolas Cage be good? It's about will the movie be great? And so everything he's doing is in service of that. He's approachable. He doesn't want to hang like in the case of this when he's really submerged into a character, he's hidden in his makeup and all this stuff, like he's really in it. He doesn't want to hang out. He doesn't want to have dinner. He doesn't want to meet the crew. He doesn't want to meet the producers. He doesn't want to meet the other actors. But in between takes, he talks to me like Nicolas Cage, right? He doesn't, I don't have to like weed through some method thing where like, oh, I got to talk to him like he's Andy Kaufman now. Okay, I'll figure it out. He's Nicolas Cage and he's available and he wants to have a good time. He likes to laugh. Um, and he's a legend for good reason.
He's a big performer, right? As well. Like, was that ever an issue for you in kind of that fitting that Nick Cage performance with the tone that you were after for this film? Like, did you ever have to rein it in with him a little bit?
No, because for me the tone is it's fun. For me, Longlegs is fun. Like I know people are taking it on very like it's very scary, it's very intense, it's very scarring. I'm never gonna sleep again. Great, great. Not necessarily my intention. I'm happy, I'm fine with it, but also not my problem, right? Like how people react, not my problem. For me, it's just joyful. And so when you have someone who wants to play as much as Nick does and give as much as he wants to give, just take it. No, I don't, if you see something in any aspect of the movie that you feel is too much or too little, just take it out.
Yeah.
It's hard to do.
And finally, how have you found the reaction? You know, you mentioned at the beginning you wanted to make a movie that would reach an audience that more people would see. People are talking about this movie, right? Everywhere. How have you found the kind of the reaction to be to this movie so far? And have you yourself experienced it with big audiences yet at this point?
I've watched it with audiences and it's really gratifying. People really like it. People really get it. They really think it's funny in the places where I think it's funny. They seem genuinely surprised by the turns in it. They don't see the things coming. They don't see the twists. They don't see the truths. They don't see the thing. So that's super, really incredibly gratifying. To get great reviews and stuff, I'm not gonna like it's amazing. I'm not gonna pretend like I don't care or like I don't. I'm really trying hard not to care, but it's hard not to care when as artists, I think we crave approval and mirroring and validation, all the things that when we wanted when we were kids, little kids, we still want them. So it's nice. And I got to hand it to Neon. If it wasn't for my partnership with Neon, I don't know what this would be like. But they've taken on the movie in such a really intelligent, sophisticated way. They really care about presenting this thing. And I think the effect of that is immeasurable.
Fantastic. Well, Osgood Perkins, thank you so much for your time. I absolutely loved the movie. Thank you
Thanks
again.
so much, man.